And welcome once again to the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. We're joined by Chief Agricultural Editor for Sask Ag Today, Kevin Hursh, 620 CKRM AgriNews Director Ryan Young, and I'm GX94 Agriculture Director Doug Falconer. Welcome, and of course, a lot of new topics to talk about this week. Maybe we'll start first off with the latest crop reports that came out. Of course, that's closest to home for everyone. And it sounds like Saskatchewan is well on its way to wrapping up a little early this year.
Ryan, it seems that your estimates from last roundtable were even a little bit small C conservative. Looks like even more progress than what you were projecting.
Yeah, I was kind of being cautiously optimistic when it comes to guessing because, I'm not really good with predicting number one, and with number two with ag, it just seems like you never know with certain things, but that's pretty good, with the harvest progress being at where it is. Kevin, in the region that you are in the Southwest, it's pretty much essentially done. And according to the crop report, it says that there's just a few flax seeded acres that were just left to combine. Is that kind of true from what you've been observing?
You do see an occasional combine in my part of the world. I'm back in Saskatoon now, but came up a few days ago, and there was still, an occasional field here and there, but very, very darn few that hadn't been combined in my neck of the woods. I can't remember, what did Sask Ag say, 97% in the Southwest, I think, and then overall 82%. So I'm surprised that overall progress is that good and well ahead of the 5 and 10-year averages. So really looking like an early completion to harvest.
What I thought was interesting, guys, was that the East Central region now trails everybody because we've had some rain here over the last 2 weeks on and off, just enough to slow people down. I think the last number was showing just 66% complete here in the East Central. And that kind of segues into Manitoba, where they're only 51% complete as of their last crop report province-wide. And that was, of course, late Tuesday, early Wednesday morning when their crop report came out. So obviously a little wetter on the east side of Saskatchewan and into Manitoba.
Yep, still some work to do there then. That's interesting, Doug.
Anything else on it, Ryan?
Yeah, I was just talking to a farmer from Ituna the other day just to see how his harvest was going. And he was kind of saying the same thing in terms of the East Central area. He was getting, pockets of rain here and there, just wet enough to stop combining for the day. And then he would resume the next day. And then when the next little shower came along, it was just again enough to kind of slow him down momentarily and then right back at it again. So he's figuring if all goes well and if the weather cooperates finally, he'll be done his harvest within a week.
And then it can turn around and rain and rain and rain for most of us. Man, it's been too dry, far too long.
A lot of producers right now, Kevin and Ryan, are taking off canola, as that's one of the last things they take off before flax, for instance. And one of the things we've been talking about is the price of canola, and it's continuing to plummet.
Yeah, it's sad to see. Every now and then you'll get a day where it'll pop up by a few dollars a ton, but that's followed by a $5 or $10 or $15 a ton drop. What was available as close to $18 a bushel for canola a couple of weeks ago, I don't think you could find $16 a bushel anywhere. It continues to go down and has softened, and some of the analysts are saying the next level of support is yet another step lower. I guess if you look historically, maybe we wouldn't complain about $15 canola, but it's come down a long way, and a lot of us have missed the boat on prices that could have been locked in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I notice with the street prices that I keep a track of every day, the start the week canola was in that $700 a metric ton range, and then by today it dropped down to around $683 a metric ton. So quite a bit of a drop on the week.
The other thing we have to keep an eye out, of course, is lentils and chickpeas and that sort of thing because of what's going on between Canada and India right now. And Kevin, you've been hearing a little bit about that?
Following some various market analysis, and also received a call from a producer on it. It seems like the price of red lentils in particular may have softened a cent or two after the Trudeau India announcement earlier in the week. And one grower in particular called me up and said that one fairly significant buyer was limiting how much producers could sell. Yes, there was a posted price, I think it was 38 cents a pound, but limiting it basically to 4 super bees per producer. So kind of limiting what their exposure would be in case the tensions spill over even more into the trade area. And I think it's something we'll really need to watch. Haven't heard much as far as an effect on chickpeas, but certainly in lentils, where that's a big customer for us. It's going to be, I think there's a lot of the trade nervous about whether this is going to spill over into the trade arena, and lentils will be the one to watch.
Yeah, and from a provincial standpoint, India is a big customer for us, as it contributes about $1 billion worth to the provincial economy. I know that Trade Minister Jeremy Harrison, he wasn't too thrilled about marrying the International Trade Minister's announcement of postponing the trade mission to New Delhi. And then we find out a little bit later on afterward that um, India was accused of playing a role in the assassination of a prominent Sikh leader. So that, to me, kind of looks like the likely smoking gun of why the trade mission was canceled. So a lot of moving parts around with this. And I'm interested to see what else kind of a ripple effect that this will have.
And do you think, Kevin, for instance, this could become a political issue here at home? I know I've heard some people suggest that Trudeau didn't mind doing this because it's the Western Canadian farmer that's going to be hardest hit by any perhaps allegations and anything that, maybe some non-tariff barriers that might be thrown up because of all this.
Yeah, the political motivation is always interesting to speculate on, but difficult to know for sure. I've seen other political speculation saying that, it's good for the prime minister's image to come out and make such an accusation that everybody can get on side with the prime minister, that it also deflects some of the problems with China and some of the situation for Chinese meddling in Canadian elections and that sort of thing. My personal view is that I'm not sure you should make that accusation unless you actually have solid proof and somebody is being charged with the murder. It's pretty difficult to ask India to investigate itself if it was actually a state-sponsored hit job. So we're really in uncharted territory here, and I don't think there's any easy answers, but it sure is a case of politics spilling over and affecting trade in the agricultural world.
And so do you expect the markets to continue to slide a bit on the lentil side?
I really can't speculate. Maybe this will all just sort of lack of news. It'll just all sort of fade away to some degree, although I don't think there'll be any prime ministerial trips to India anytime soon. But maybe it will fade away from public view and trade won't be affected very much. On the other hand, we may see ramifications. I'm really torn as to what's likely to happen. I think everybody is nervous.
I mean, and we saw with the Russian-Ukraine conflict as well, I think most people would agree that wheat prices haven't fluctuated as much as they thought they might, considering the attacks on the port infrastructure and almost preventing wheat from actually leaving ports completely.
Yeah, although there's so many different ways to get grain out of India that you read the analysis and it's finding a way out. Of course, they're running into a problem where their nearby neighbors don't want to be flooded with Ukrainian grain and they want to protect their own farmers. So that's an interesting development. It sort of starts putting cracks in the alliance against Russia, unfortunately.
Well, one of the other things you wanted to talk about, Kevin, this week was the fall calf run and how prices have been. It sounds like prices have been pretty good so far.
Prices are absolutely astounding by historical standards, and cattle producers will tell you that those sort of returns are needed because costs are high and they've gone many years without great returns. But if you 500 or 600 pound steer, a calf this fall is going to be well worth over $2,000. And talk to Brenna Grant of Canfax, and you know, the question, how much are prices better than last year? Well, they're up by more than $1 a pound. So that 500-pound steer calf is worth $500 more approximately, or probably more than that, than it was last year. Asked her about profitability, you know, costs have gone up as well. And yeah, there's also profitability for all regions, almost all regions of Canada and all different production systems. And she expects the beef supply to be tight in North America for the foreseeable future, a year or two. So there is some belief that these very strong cattle prices will continue and won't be a short-term blip. Saying the fall calf run started early because, well, partly because of drought situation and people wanting to get calves to market because of lack of feed, but also I think some producers didn't want to miss out in case this was a short-term blip. So the fall calf run started early and will soon be in full swing.
And Ryan, I know one of the things you wanted to talk about was Bill C-234, which is in the Senate, I believe, right now. Have you heard anything there on where that's at?
Well, there continues to be even more discussions about the bill. It's currently in the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Forestry. Tory MP Ben Lobb is addressing the Senate committee. There was also a Tory senator that talked a little bit about that as well. Could imagine he's one of the supporters of the bill. The thing is, there's a couple of Liberal senators that are kind of questioning whether farmers are unwilling to adapt and change to the current climate and adopting alternative technologies and more energy efficient technologies. And so that's kind of prompted more of this discussion just to kind of dig a little bit further, despite the fact that it's been 3 years of talking about it, poring over it, going through every single possible angle and asking every kind of question possible about the bill. So it's again currently in talks, and Lobb is answering all kinds of questions and kind of getting into a little bit of an exchange with one Liberal senator on it. So I'm curious to see how long this would last before finally a decision is made.
All right. And Kevin?
Yeah, and that's the bill, Ryan, if I remember correctly, that exempts propane and natural gas from from the carbon tax if it's used for grain drying or for heating barns, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep.
So what would be your take on it, Kevin? As a farmer, obviously, I could imagine in your part of the world, do you dry grain much at all? Obviously, drought. So would that be something that affects you personally?
Not typically. Don't have a very limited grain drying capability. Just a heater on an aeration fan with some propane. Hasn't been used in probably half a dozen years, and very limited amounts. So really this is the central and northern grain belt areas, and it won't probably be a big concern this year with the harvest coming off early, but in a wet harvest year, there's a tremendous amount of propane and natural gas that goes into grain drying. And the question is, well, some say farmers don't have an alternative. Well, and then some of the Liberal senators that you were mentioning say, oh no, there are more efficient grain dryers. Well, yeah, and then you keep the carbon tax there so that it tries to encourage people to adopt this technology, but it's only 10 or 20 or 30% more efficient. And really having the carbon tax in place, is it going to convince people to spend that sort of investment for a more efficient grain dryer? So it's been a long time coming. I think the ag industry will, heave a bit of a sigh of relief when the bill, and if the bill is finally passed.
Great. Anything else anybody want to add for this week?
That's excellent, Doug.
All right. Well, thank you very much for participating. And this has been the Sask Ag Today Roundtable. And that's Kevin Hursh. He's the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com. Ryan Young, he's the AgriNews Director for 620 CKRM Regina. And I'm Doug Falconer, Agriculture Director at GX94 Yorkton. Have a great week, everybody.